Welcome to the From Concealment Podcast, the show for firearm enthusiasts who like to shoot, train, carry, and compete. Get ready for some shooting insight, firearm and accessory reviews, and of course, insight on concealed carry. And now, broadcasting from behind enemy lines in the From Concealment studio, it's Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams.
Hey, Freedom Nation. Welcome to the From Concealment Podcast. I am your co-host, Pete Mitchell, here with my other co-host,
Dan Sams.
Dan Sams, eating the licorice.
Yep, rocking some Red Bonds because we're Red Bonds family here. Helps me think, helps me fight tyranny.
You know what's funny? I literally just started. This could either be really good or really bad. We'll find out in 30 days, man. I started the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
I wanted to give it a whirl for 30 days and just see what happened. What was the net effect? So 0 carbs. That's
nice.
The carnivore diet. It's all basically, realistically at its core, it's all beef all the time. Like you're hungry, steak. Need a little bit something extra, ground beef. You need something more, steak again. That's pretty much the whole diet, right? Like, it just sounds crazy, but all these guys have done it, and I'm like, man, I'm kind of curious. I'm curious. I want to know what happens, physiologically to my body. Are you hungry? Are you not hungry? All these guys are like, you're never hungry on this thing. I'm curious.
Yep. I think it's interesting. I've had a couple of times where I ate an abundance of meat and it didn't have a lot of carbs or anything to go with it. And it made me feel a little funny, but it sure tasted good. So I'm curious. Let me know how it goes. It's one of those you do it for a while and then you go to something else? Like, is it a back and forth kind of thing?
In theory, no. There are guys who have been on it for 20 years. And like they're in the best shape of their lives.
Yeah.
And so what spurred it on is, I've been doing the whole health kick for like the last year. And I was just curious. Literally, that was it, right? So I have totally taken out refined carbs, nothing refined, and really very little carbs. So for me, I was even thinking about, I'm like, the transition for me to go to the carnivore diet, not that big of a deal because I have avocado, I have a couple of slices of Ezekiel bread during the day. Maybe we'll have broccoli, sweet potato at night, but for the most part, not a whole lot of carbs. And so I was like, it really won't be that big of a transition for me. So what kind of spurred it on? I honestly don't know where it started from, but Jordan Peterson, he's on the carnivore diet.
Oh.
So he's got a lot of mental health issues, depression, anxiety, stuff like that. Him and his daughter both. And so his daughter, heard about this carnivore diet. She decided to try it. And in doing so, it equalized out her whole body. And she actually got off all of her medication because the whole brain chemistry, everything got normalized. And so Jordan Peterson having the same issues, he's like, well, I'll give it a whirl. And so he gives it a whirl and he's like, this is the best I've ever felt in my life. He ends up getting off of his medication as well. And both of them said that they notice whenever they have any carbs, like if they go, I'm going to have a salad, they will feel like crap for the next month because their body chemistry is one in which apparently, their body's not processing carbs easily. And so anyway, so I'd seen that maybe like a year ago or something, right? And I'd seen him talk about it on Joe Rogan's podcast, which is always
interesting,
entertaining as all get out.
It is. It's a fun podcast. It's entertaining. It's entertaining.
Very, very entertaining, especially the one with him and Alex Jones. I really enjoyed watching that one. And so Joe Rogan ends up having this medical doctor, Sean Becker or Black or something like that. I got his book. I read his book. And so this doctor, really interesting story. He's a medical doctor. He's an Afghan vet. He was a surgeon. in Afghanistan. I think it was Afghanistan, not Iraq. And he goes, man, we just saw the worst of the worst, right? As a surgeon over there. And he goes, and we treated everybody. I mean, enemy soldiers, enemy combatants, didn't matter. And he goes, it did feel stupid because we would finally get, an enemy Taliban or whatever healthy again. We'd release them, and the Afghan army would just take them and shoot them in the head, like right out in front of the base. And he's like, but it's anyway. That's not the point of the story. So he's this great surgeon, and he's working for this hospital group, growing it like crazy. He discovers the keto diet, and it like changes a lot of things for him. So he starts, talking to his patients. Hey, before we do surgery, maybe you ought to look at, doing this keto diet, right? And he'd like had all this literature, he's handing it out. So his department ends up going down in revenue dramatically because he's changing their lives by changing their diet. So his hospital gets all pissed at him. End of the story, or bottom line is he ends up losing his medical license. And so somewhere in that time, he was like, well, I'm going to try this whole carnivore thing and just, go 30 days carnivore diet, basically all meat, eggs. I mean, that's pretty much the carnivore diet. Like, your shopping list is really short. You just got to get a lot of it. Right.
Yeah.
And so he does it for 30 days and he's like, man, I've never felt this good. And the guy's huge. Like, and I don't mean fat. I mean, he is built. He was a rugby player. He dropped out of medical school to go play rugby, right? Like, he's built. He's like 6-something, right? Just totally built out, works out every day really hard. And so Joe Rogan had him on, and, he's talking about all the fears that everyone has. What about scurvy? Are you going to get scurvy? And, well, apparently there's vitamin C in meat because the animals eat the vitamin C. He goes, but they never actually tested it for vitamin C. That's why it says 0 on your label. He goes, but now we've tested it and we know there's vitamin C in there. So if you're actually eating meat, unprocessed, not like on the boat, right, on the ride over where they put it all in salt and I mean, fresh meat, completely different, right, than stored meat and all that stuff. And so people have been on it for like 10, 20 years, never, no bad health. In fact, only good health. And so Joe Rogan's like, well, I'll give it a whirl for 30 days, but it seems kind of dangerous, right? Because everyone's thinking cholesterol, they're thinking all this stuff. So Joe Rogan gives it a whirl for 30 days, and he goes, honestly, I never felt this good in all my life. He goes, I lost 12 pounds on this thing. And you got to figure a good portion of that's got to be water at the beginning because your body, when you eat carbs, it retains water. It tells the cells, hey, go ahead and store up some water. And so when you go to 0 carbs, you're going to lose a lot of water. But he was like, people are making fun of me because I was starting to get this roll. He goes, it's gone. And like you see him because he does a weigh-in with his shirt off. And you're like, dude's fit. But I always thought he was fit. So So I was telling my wife, I'm like, I'm going to give it a whirl for 30 days. I just want to see, like, I feel so good today as opposed to what I used to feel like based on my old diet. I don't know that it can go up any higher. But at the same time, I never felt bad before. I just didn't know how good I could feel. And so now I'm kind of like, well, I want to give it a whirl for 30 days, just see what happens. So your red vines made me think of that. I'm not no red vines for Pete.
These are terrible for me. But I'm liking the idea of a meat only diet. I'm going to think about this a little bit. Yeah, the red vines are my Father's Day gift that I'm enjoying. I eat these about once a year, and I feel terrible after I've eaten them. But I feel so good when I am eating them.
Right.
They're not a sponsor, but they should be.
They should be.
That's right. So good stuff,
awesome.
man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy deal, man. I'll just say that. I really started it yesterday, and I can honestly tell you my first full day in with 0 carbs was not a bad day. Like, the hunger was not there like I thought it would be. This morning I went, it was leg day at the gym. I had a hard, good, solid workout in the fasted state because I didn't want to eat a bunch of meat right before I went and worked out.
Understand that.
I was like, dude, I don't know how I got all this energy when I'm in the fasted state, but so I don't know. I'm curious. I'm on basically day 2 we'll see what happens after 30 days. I'm curious. That's all I can say is I'm just curious.
I am curious. Let's keep track of it, man. Like,
I know, right?
We'll have like 4 episodes to go over it, man. I want to hear every week how you're doing.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Like down like a pound and a half. I'm like, that's water.
Yeah, but still, that's cool. Yeah.
I'm not gonna complain. So yeah.
It's cool, man. That's awesome.
So, dude, tell me what is going on in your home state?
So I honestly don't know that much of what's going on. I'm seeing some reports about cars being surrounded in Columbus by protesters, as I understand, and then cops. Apparently, according to a dispatcher, the mayor had said they're not going to dispatch cops to respond. And so I'm actually trying to get more information, and I'm not getting as much detail as I would like, but apparently stuff was going down in Columbus this weekend.
I saw that same thing on Facebook, and I was like, see, here's the part that bothers me. Okay, a protest by its very nature is going to be disruptive.
Yes.
And there's a time and a place for that. I'm all for that. You have 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 people walking down the street. That street's shut down. People are inconvenienced by your protest, which means people are hearing you.
Yeah.
Just by the mere fact that they're being inconvenienced. The one that annoys me to no end, and I think I don't think it's a protest. I think it's just people being jerks, is when they crowd the freeway and they stop a freeway.
Yeah.
That I got a problem with. First of all, you got people going 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, and then people start walking out onto it. I mean, dude, you're causing serious accidents, or you have the potential, I should say, to cause serious accidents.
Serious accidents is dangerous for the protesters. It's dangerous for the people driving. And the reality is the people who are trying not to hit you are the ones that are going to be the most in danger. And so it's just the freeway blocks are just stupid.
Yeah.
I am not down with that at all. Yeah. Crazy stuff. So yeah, I'm trying to get more reporting on that. I'm just getting little bits of it. And so I don't know the whole story, but I'm concerned. And I keep hearing this thing again and again where people are like, yep, we called the cops, and the cops either are not mustering to the position, or they've essentially said, we're not going to interfere with that part of the protest. And I'm hearing that on a few different things. And it's a reminder of why people need to have the means to defend themselves.
Yeah.
And so put aside this, there's also other crazy things going on. I mean, there's so much crazy going on. We don't have the time to address it all. I've got a friend in another state. We won't give detail. He's probably listening though. He's being required to test himself for COVID before he's allowed to go back to work. And so he's got to prove he doesn't have it. Well, then, but he's healthy. And so the hospitals and whatever don't want to test him because he's healthy. And he's like, I need to go to work, so I need the test. And they're like, we don't want to test you because you're probably fine. And he's like, I know, but I need. And so we're getting into these kind of messes. I don't know if you saw about Kansas City. I shared this thing today. I'd seen this article, and it's maybe 2 or 3 weeks old, article where Kansas City was supposedly requiring churches to turn in their member statements to the city. Right. And I'm like, something seems shady about that. Wouldn't put that past them, but let's look into it. So I found a fact-checking article. I don't know if you've noticed this, man, but I keep coming across these fact-checking articles that when they fact-check them, they're like, oh, that's not what's happening. Here's what's really happening. And then what's really happening is twice as scary. And so it turns out what Kansas City is doing is that you have to keep track of anybody who visits your church and have a list of that to turn in. So I'm like, that's worse than the member list. Right. And so stuff like that's going on. We've got cops not showing up. We have churches kind of being harassed with what kind of information they need to turn in. Black Lives Matters organizers just came out affirming that they were Marxist the whole time. Like, weird stuff, man. It's a crazy, crazy time. And then in Columbus, they're surrounding cars, and the cops are saying, like, yeah, I don't think we're going to go. Yeah, so now is a great time to make sure that you are adequately armed, ladies and gentlemen. So I don't know. Any more thoughts on that, Pete?
Yeah, no, it's, man, I tell you, it's a crazy situation, everything that's going on. And I think, we talk about this all the time about having a firearm and getting trained on it and continue in the training. So I think it was last Tuesday, I went to a firearms training, and I've been wearing my 1911 from time to time, more so just because it's a single stack, and it's a single stack, right? I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt. I don't want it to push out as much as my Glock 19. And so I was like, all right, since I'm carrying my 1911, I'm gonna train on it tonight, and just I haven't fired it, and I don't even know how long. I'm gonna train on it.
Yeah.
So I'm training on it, and dang it, I'm like, as a Glock guy that has no external safety other than the safety on the trigger, I kept forgetting to freaking flip down the safety, and I'm like, I'm never carrying my 1911 again.
Yeah, that's probably wise, man.
I train too much with a Glock, and it's like I'm not used to flipping that thing down.
Yeah, you were exactly right. The anytime you're changing really any gun, but especially when you have a whole different safety setup on that kind of thing, it's just hard because then whatever you're training on the most is going to be the thing that you do, and it's almost like you don't want to muddy up your training. By even doing other training and being ready for that is like, so you're right. I mean,
the easy way around that is leave the safety off. I mean, that's the easy way around it. The type of holster that I use, it's not going to go off because it's the trigger's got Kydex over it. It's not going to go off. And I mean, it's funny because a buddy of mine who carries as well, he uses a Springfield XD. And that's his primary gun. And he never wanted to do a Glock. He's like, I need the safety. I need to know I'm not going to shoot myself in any part of my leg, my manhood, my butt, whatever, wherever he's carrying. He's like, I just need to know. And I'm like, dude, let me show you. I go, here's the holster. Here's my Glock. Put it in there. How can that thing go off? It can't, right? Now I take the holstered gun and I stick it in. I'm safe. Totally safe. Like when you understand that's how it works. Oh, okay. Well, now I don't have to worry about it. You don't put the holster in and then slide the Glock in, because then, what if it catches on a piece of clothing, whatever, not cool. And, but he was like, no, I want the safety. And so when I was carrying an M&P, I had the shield there for a while, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. But I would carry it with the safety off because I was like, dude, I freaking never remember to hit that thing. I'm used to a Glock. That's what I'm used to. And then I was able to get the Glock 43, and then I was like, all right, now I got what I want. So I'm good.
Well, and even if your gun has a safety, I don't recommend carrying with a safety on if you're carrying for defense. It's the same kind of thinking as, if you think you're going to be in a car accident and you're going to be able to really fast put your seatbelt on, taking the safety off is one more motion you got to do when you're pulling in a defensive situation.
It can be done. It isn't. I see. Yeah. Here's where I would disagree. I would disagree in the sense that if that's what you train with, then really what happens is when you come in with a high thumb, and that's just what you do. Yeah. And so when the gun goes up, your thumb automatically goes down and flips the safety off. So, if that's how you're training, I'm totally fine if you use a safety.
That can be done. I still am kind of like, it's still one more thing, but you're right. You can train for that, and you're not necessarily taking more time in the draw. I still am like, it's one more thing you have to think, but you're exactly right. People can do that.
Actually think about it.
If you're trained in it. If you're trained in it. I just, there's something about knowing I have one more thing that plugs. And so I'm okay with it. Like, I know people do it. It's fine. But I feel a little bit better. Like, I don't carry with the safety on. I want to know that I can just pull and go bang.
Just run and gun.
Well, the same thing, it allows me to switch between a Glock carry and like a Smith & Wesson, M&P style carry. Allows for both. And so then I'm essentially trained for both in that situation.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. I mean, it does. I never felt right carrying without a safety. And so that's why I was like, I never felt right carrying without the safety on, right? But I carry a Glock. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But it's like, I know that's what the gun is designed to do, and I don't want to do that. And so it's weird, right? It's just,
I understand, man.
so now I'm pretty much all Glock all the time now, because I don't want to mess with the safety. I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah, well, and I'm not a Glock guy, and yet I think you're making a good decision there. If you're a Glock guy and you're carrying most of the time, go ahead and just carry Glock all the time, and you're the same.
Yeah.
Which this might be a good time. We've got a little bit more time here. I'd love to talk a little bit about great guns to be carrying for in the vehicle. We were addressing the whole issue of cars being surrounded. We hear about bad situations. And sometimes, like, let's just be clear. Sometimes protesters are stopping a traffic area, and that might be annoying, but they're not hurting anybody. It's another thing when cars are being surrounded, people are beating on windows. When you're in danger, right? And so I want to draw a really clear distinction. Like, protesters blocking your way does not constitute use of lethal force. Right. You getting attacked, people smashing at your windows, that at least you put you in a position where you have the potential to defend yourself. You might have to defend yourself from lethal force, and you might have to use lethal force to do that. How you carry in your vehicle matters for that. And so I know there's a lot of people, a lot of women like to do the purse carry, which I don't recommend anyway. But I want you to think about, if you are driving a car and you are purse carrying, think about your purse is either on the floor behind you, in the floorboard behind you. Maybe it's in the front seat, or maybe you've had to stop suddenly, and now the purse has fallen into the panel down there, or into the floorboard in the front. Purse carry is not a great idea. So you at least need to have the gun on you during that, or you need to carry some other place in the car. Some of these things we just got to think through. Maybe you're the dude who pocket carries your gun, and you carry a little Smith & Wesson bodyguard in your pocket instead of it in the waistband. You ever try to get something out of your pocket, try to get your cell phone out of your pocket while in a seated position? It's not easy. So great time with weird stuff going on. Be thinking about how you are carrying when you are driving. Are you appendix carrying? Can you pull from the appendix position? You should be able to. Are you 3 o'clock position? Are you in the waistband from the back carrying? Right. All these kind of things matter, and you need to think them through. So I know sometimes people are like, well, when I'm driving, it's uncomfortable anyway. And so I put it in the console. That's fine. Or maybe you have a truck gun that you have available. Is it in your glove box, or is it in the console? Because it's going to be hard to get it out of the glove box, a little bit easier to get it out of the console. Great time for people to just be thinking this kind of stuff through, because apparently stopping traffic is becoming more of an issue.
And keep in mind, you got to know your state laws. As the guy from communist California, I always have to throw that in there. You got to know your state laws on what you can and can't do in your vehicle.
Yeah. For legal purposes, you better know your state laws. For self-defense purposes, do what you need to do to keep yourself safe. But don't break any laws. For legal purposes, we're not telling you to do that.
Right.
I feel like we should make that very clear.
I've seen some guys who, in free states like Arizona, not like California, their car gun is an AR pistol, which, because it's technically a pistol, and if you have a concealed carry permit, you can have any pistol you want on you. And so they use that as their car gun. And I'm like, to live in a free state, right? I would love to have an AR pistol as my car gun. Just, let me grab that real quick, and I know that I'm good. But
that would be a lot of fun. Man, and if it's a really nice, really short barrel and you can move that thing out.
It's a pistol.
Perfect. Yeah.
It's already going to be short, 8 inches maybe,
That's what I'm talking about, man. One of those Springfield Saints that are the whole thing, stock and all, is like 18 inches. That's not bad. I could wield that from my driving position if I needed to. My
first AR was a Springfield Saint as a rifle, not the pistol. And I'm like, if I was in a free state, I would definitely get a Springfield pistol, AR pistol.
Yeah,
There's no doubt.
Yeah, buddy. It's good stuff, man. Thinking about that. And of course, we've already gone through a whole thing for concealed guns and what we recommend. I'm, of course, a Walther man. Pete here is a Glock man. But man, if you have not gotten yourself a good concealed pistol, for crying out loud, our podcast is called From Concealment. you really need to get yourself a good concealed pistol. I'm going to recommend a Walther PPQ or anything else in the Walther rounds, or Walther Sphere in maybe a 9mm. Pete's going to tell you a Glock, but you're going to be fine with either one. Go ahead, Pete. What were you going to say?
No, I mean, yeah, I always tell people a Glock only because, I mean, they might be ugly. I'll grant you that. They're ugly guns, but they are incredibly good guns. I mean, the track record on them, it's the reason why all these different departments all across the world are using Glocks. They don't have to worry about it. You pick that thing up and go. Run it through the mud, pick it up and go. I mean, it's a good gun. And
it's the Honda Civic. This is what we always say. It's the Honda Civic. There are better cars than the Honda Civic. But as far as just good old-fashioned reliability, always going to go bang. You're going to have an easy time finding parts. It's going to do what you need it to do. It's your Honda Civic, and we recommend it for that purpose. There are guns that you can trick out. You can trick out a Glock. You can do some amazing things with some better guns. But for the standard purposes of something that's going to be faithful and always work, Glock is a good gun.
Yeah. Hey, we actually did get a question on our Facebook page, probably because we were going live, just like we're going live with this one.
Yeah.
And the guy wanted to know what our opinion was on High Point.
Nice. Are you serious? Somebody asked about High Point?
I am dead serious. And I know the guy, right? And so based on that question, I'm like, okay, he probably doesn't have a firearm, but I know where he lives, and he's probably thinking, I got kids now. I need to have guns, guns plural. Well,
can I give my first opinion on High Point?
I'm asking because I kind of told him my thoughts on it, but
yeah. So I remember when I was first getting into guns outside of the, like just Henry rifle kind of thing. We're like, what you would call your FUD guns. When I started getting out of FUD guns into, hey, I need some defensive weapons. I remember being in a gun shop and I was like, hey, what's this gun that's only $150? And the guy there is like, yeah, that's a High Point. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's amazing. It's only $150. Look, why is it only $150? That's a great deal. And he's like, well, the High Point, sir, he's trying to sell me the thing, but he's also trying to not sell me that gun.
Right.
And he's like, well, High Points they're just a lower quality. It's just a real simple, cheap gun, and like whatever. And I remember talking to another guy about like, hey, I saw this gun. It's called a High Point. Should I get this thing? And he's like, you don't want a High Point. Just that was it. And then, of course, you see a couple of memes where you're like, oh, High Points are the butt of the jokes. I shouldn't have a High Point. And so I will say, so let's just set that up. Like, High Points have been the brunt of a lot of jokes, and in many cases, for good reason. But let's say that, maybe 10, 12 years ago, that was all people did is make fun of High Points, right? That was the only gun that ever got really picked on. I mean, you had your 1911 versus Glock guys that fight with each other, but secretly everybody likes Glocks and 1911s, and then people would just make fun of High Point, together. Here's what's happened. Back however many years ago, High Point came out with a 9mm carbine that actually ended up being a pretty decent gun. Still really cheap, still does good. My dad has one, and he loves it. He's like, it just does great. I've shot the thing. It's a good little gun, right? It's not your awesome fighting weapon. It's not going to be your amazing defense gun, but they came out with that carbine and it did all right. So then people started kind of not really taking them more seriously, but recognizing that like, okay, it's not just something that jams all the time. It might actually go bang for you some, and that's all right. So then fast forward a little bit, I would say their quality started to increase. Now, just full disclosure, you've got a lot of people that would just buy a High Point, unfortunately, just to rob a store. Because it was the cheapest gun you could get. You could rob a store with it. You could throw it away. Hopefully, you got more out of that cash register than you paid for the gun. Not always. But that's unfortunately the thinking that a lot of people had. Now, fast forward a little bit further, and this whole yeet cannon thing comes along. And they do this like viral marketing, like you could vote on what this new gun was going to be called. And as a joke, everybody said, let's call it the yeet cannon.
I really want one too, because I want to say I have a yeet cannon.
Well, then here's the thing. Yeet Cannon won the vote for the naming. They tried to get out of it, and I think H&K or somebody harassed them on Twitter and said, your fans did this. You're going to have to name it the Yeet Cannon. So they did. And, of course, then that got them a lot of buzz. And so all the reviewers just thought, for fun, let's review the Yeet Cannon because, isn't it fun to say and this hilarious joke in it? Well, I was watching a lot of these review videos for the Yeet Cannon, which I think runs around $175 or something. And they're firing the Yeet Cannon, and they're like, well, this cycled well. We haven't had any jams. And you could tell that, they were waiting for the joke for, right. And then the whole thing blew up. But they're like, yeah, it worked. And then one of the Demolition Ranch guys reviewed, it wasn't the Yeet Cannon, it was another High Point, the dude at Demolition Ranch. And he's shooting this thing, and he's like, it's doing all right. Threw it in the creek, pulled it out, still shot it, and he's like, I wouldn't recommend, he's painting him because he doesn't want to say this might be an okay gun. But he's like, I definitely wouldn't make this my main carry gun. But, man, for $150 and a gun that goes bang that you could have as your truck gun or whatever, I can't say that that's a bad idea, right? And so that about sums up where I'm at on High Points. One, I want a Yeet Cannon because it's fun, right? But if you're buying a newer High Point, it sure seems like quality has come up some. I still would not recommend it. But if all you've got's $175 and you need a gun, you're probably going to have a gun that's going to go bang. It's probably going to do all right. Now, if you're going to do that, let me just tell you, think about going the next step up. You can get yourself a Canik, which is known as the Turkish Glock. Canik, you can get a 200 and change gun that is going to be a very similar quality to a Glock. And not everybody believes that, but they've tested these things out. They cycle well. They're amazing. If you're thinking about a High Point, just notch it up a little bit. I mean, if that's all you got, get yourself a High Point. It's better than not having anything. But if you want to notch yourself up just a little bit, think about getting a Canik or a Walther. You can spend $200 or $300, get a 9mm that is going to be high quality. And so that's kind of the next thing I would say. If you're thinking about a High Point, I'm actually not going to dog High Points that much. I'm going to say it's not the best. It's probably going to do okay. But wouldn't you rather, if you're going to trust your life with it, for another $100 to have a gun that is going to go bang when you need it to? That's what I would recommend. So that's kind of my take on High Points. Think about going with something just a little bit more, and you can get a lot more quality for another $100. So I don't know. Did that go way out from what you had told him, Pete?
No, not way out, because basically what I told him was almost the same thing. I'm like, look, everyone makes fun of High Points, but at the end of the day, if you're thinking safety in your house, you pull the trigger, it's going to go bang. Yeah. And that's what you want the gun to do. Yeah. It's not going to break the bank. And I go, but here's the other thing. Right now in California, Southern California, you pretty much got to take whatever you can get, because there's nothing. There literally is nothing on the shelves. In fact, one of our listeners, I don't know if I brought this up last week, but he was telling me that he was able to sell his Shield for $750 used.
Oh my.
Because a shield used, because you can't get a gun. I mean, and so I'm looking at all my guns going, okay, I don't shoot that 1911. I don't shoot that 1911. I don't shoot that Beretta. Maybe I need to go sell those suckers, because you can't buy anything right now. So this is, people don't understand. Here in California, we have something called the roster. And thanks to our Supreme Court, they refused to hear the case that's before them. So we're going to keep having the roster. And the roster keeps getting smaller and smaller. It's the reason why we're on Gen 3 Glocks, because you can't get anything new on the roster.
That's 2 gens behind for all of you guys that don't know.
Yeah. You all want to know, why does everybody make extra parts for Gen 3 Glocks? It's because California has more Glocks than the rest of you all, but they're all Gen 3s. So that's why all the accessories, everything is still made for Gen 3 because of California. So So we've got this thing called the roster. You have to get a gun that's on it. Right now, there's only like 500 or 600 guns on the roster. So that's what we're limited to, are these 500 or 600 guns. Now, cops and government employees, they get to buy off-roster guns. So there's a law for us, and then there's a law for them.
Yeah.
And they can then turn around and sell their off-roster gun to the private market in a private party transfer. It still has to go through an FFL. Everything is done through FFLs in California. There are no showing up at somebody's house. He's got a gun in his trunk. You got a couple $100 in your pocket, and you make the trade. That doesn't happen in California anymore. So, there's an off-roster price. My Glock 43, I got as a steal for $825, which is almost twice what it is retail. And that's because you can't buy it. It's got to be an off-roster, and someone's going to charge you the off-roster premium. A P365 right now, you're looking at $1,200 because that's the hot gun that everybody wants. The Hellcat, same thing, man. I mean, it's so right now it's like, because there are no guns, I can get an off-roster price for something you could buy off the roster, but you can't because no one's got it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, man, dude, this is a real opportunity because I really want a Glock 48 Glock 43.
Yeah.
And I can't get it right. Is it 43 or 48? Which one's the single stack?
43. You're talking about the
43.
small, the conceal? Yeah.
Yeah. I really want one off roster.
It's a good little gun.
I got to pay, $1,200 for it when I go to buy it because I'm going to have to do it off roster, private party transfer. We had a cop recently who got arrested because he was buying about 700 guns a year and selling them in private party transfers, which I argue, yeah, but you said he could do it.
Yeah.
So technically the law says he can't, but no one's cared until you started selling hundreds of guns a year to make, more money.
Yeah.
But that's the weird state of affairs right now in California. Is I'm like, man, I'm thinking I need to go take my couple of 45s and 1.9mm and go sell it. And then here's the better part. You're limited in California as to how many guns you can sell a year. How stupid is that? You can buy one a month unless it's private party transfer, and then that doesn't get counted against your one, and you can buy as many of those as you want. But if you want to sell it, you can only do 5 transactions a year. So you could sell a bunch of guns to one person, but you can't do more than 5 in a year. That's how jacked up this state is.
Dude, I think I'd just be breaking the law. It's an unconstitutional law. I'd just do whatever.
All gun laws are unconstitutional. Every single one of them is an infringement.
Yes.
Every one of them, not just some of them, 100% of them are unconstitutional.
And Pete, I would never, ever think about breaking any of them.
Dude, not in California, man. I will not freaking violate a gun. I kid you not. One of my buddies calls me up. He's moved to Oklahoma. His son's still here in California. I find out from a friend because I never called him back. I was like, I don't even want to deal with him because I know it's going to be something shady, right? And my friend tells me what he was calling me about. He goes, he knew that you had a bunch of guns and he wanted to sell one. He wanted you to sell one to his son, but not do it through an FFL, like just do a private party transfer. And, I just told him that's the stupidest thing in the world. No one in California will do that. And I'm like, heck no, I am not going to jail for the rest of my freaking life to sell you a gun. It's unconstitutional. I'll give you that. I'm just not going to commit the crime because just go to the FFL. We'll meet down there. It's $25. That's it.
Let's pay the $25 to not go to jail.
Dude.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I feel you. I'm not going to go to jail over something so small.
Now, if I lived in a free state like you, I would probably never buy from a store. Like Lake Erie would probably never get my business because I'd be like, dude, there's a record of me buying it. I do PPT. There's no record. I much prefer the no record.
I prefer no record as well most of the time. Although there's guns where I'm like, I want that gun, and nobody's going to part with one. So. Plus, I like support my dudes out there, of course.
But of course, I'm just saying.
But I know what you mean. In general, I'd rather not have a record of it.
That's the thing. I don't want the record.
Well, here's a good way to not have a record and still support Lake Erie Arms, by the way. Get yourself an 80% lower. Of course, you can't do this out there, but all of our listeners, get yourself an 80% lower, and then come to the shop and buy everything you need beyond that. And shoot, you can buy with cash, and there's no record at all, and it's perfectly legal. You don't have to do a background check on a carrier group or on an upper receiver, just that little lower receiver. So you do that as an 80%er.
They're totally trying to do that in California. They're trying to make like the barrel be registered at like almost every part of the gun, and a background check for every single one of them.
And then it's such a joke, because you realize, like, 3D printing, man, the game has changed. You see the whole thing the other day where, like, we're now able to, like, pretty much 3D print cartridges now, and so, like, everything we need we can 3D print, except the gunpowder itself. And then we can make that. So whole different world. When you say the cartridge, are you talking about the magazine, or are you talking about the brass? Talking about the brass. It's not brass,
right?
Yeah. I mean, we can actually make.
I don't know that I would want to shoot that.
See, here's the thing, though. We can do it.
What are they making it out of?
Whatever the composite material is.
Yeah, there's no way I would shoot that.
No. Here's what you got to think about, though. This is the thing. First of all, we've come so stinking far with the 3D printing, right? And so as soon as we've crossed into this where we're like, okay, we figured out how to do this. Now we're going to wait a little bit longer for it to get quality enough. But like, we've had plastic cartridges for a while, and they're not ideal, but they work. And so we're in a world now where we've crossed over. We've been able to 3D print just about anything we need. And now we just need to take a little bit more time for that to get a little bit better as the free market messes with us, and we'll be in good shape. Messes with us in a good way, by the way.
Do you hear Congress is trying to pass a law that says you can't make a home gun anymore? No more 80%ers?
I've heard about this. Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. I don't trust a single Republican or Democrat to actually care about our constitutionally protected rights. So I could see them saying, no, you can't do this. Yeah. But, I mean, we're talking about an activity that's literally been legal since before the revolution, the American Revolution. You make your own gun. That's just kind of how it was. And it's actually quite fun. Like, I loved making my own guns back when it was legal here in California. It was very fun.
Well, and I would argue that it can be safer. I say that with caution because, I mean, it means you're not a professional putting it together, but it does mean you are learning the ins and outs of the function of your gun. You learn how to care for it properly. You know, if something is sounding kind of funny in there, you can strip it apart, clean everything right. You know what it's supposed to look like when it's going together. And so when you take it apart, you know when something doesn't look right. And so there are ways in which, it means you are not the pro assembling the gun. But I always like to say, for crying out loud, we get 18-year-olds who barely couldn't even pass high school. And we teach them how to assemble M4s in boot camp. If that guy can do it, you can too. No offense against law enforcement and military who do that. I'm just saying, like, if they can do it, you can too. You can assemble your gun, and I think you're going to know it better, and there's going to be some safety in that.
That's what forced me to actually learn my guns was when I made my own. When I made my own Glocks, when I made my own AR-15s. Yeah. It forced me to learn. And unfortunately, one of the mistakes that I made is I bought the upper completed with the barrel, gas mount, everything done. Mm-hmm. And so when I had problems on there, I was like, I don't know how to fix this because I hadn't built one. Yeah. So then I had to go back and actually relearn everything. And Brownell's, for as much as everyone says Brownell's is, your grandfather's store, Brownell's has got great videos on how to build your AR-15, step-by-step videos. Yeah. So they will literally walk you through on the videos. I mean, I had my iPad up. I'm out on my workbench. I'm watching the video, doing it. Watching the next video, doing it. I mean, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a lot of those where they'll do little bits at a time, or it's one long video that you can pause, and it's not bad. I'd say you could probably do it very first time, having never touched it before. You're taking your time, you're figuring things out. You could probably still do the build in an hour and a half.
Oh yeah,
easily. Once you know what you're doing, it'll go a whole lot faster. But like, I mean, the learning curve is pretty simple. You're like, oh yeah, it's like Lego. You're just following a Lego instructions. And the first time you put it together, it's a little bit longer because you're taking your time and you're wanting to be safe and sure. And after that, you're gonna.
And when you figure most of the AR-15 was built so it could be stripped with a bullet, you know, I mean, it's pretty easy. Not everything. Like you need the roll pin punch and other stuff when you're going that deep on it. But you know, for most part, it's a very, very user-friendly firearm.
Yeah.
Very user-friendly.
Yeah. Well, and if you're, you know, man, the pin, you know, the punches and all that kind of stuff, and if you're going to get the proper wrench, whatever, you're still only looking at about $25 in tools to do it. And
that you get to have forever.
Exactly. There's just not that much to it. Yeah, I guess you need to do it really right. You've got to get that torque wrench. But man, every man should have a torque wrench just to be able to say you have a torque wrench.
I bought the torque wrench because of the muzzle brake that I was putting on.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make sure, since the muzzle brake is such an important key piece on it, I was like, I want this perfect. I want it lined up perfectly. I want the right torque. I want everything perfect.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why I love my ARs. My ARs are awesome, except, you know, they do look like boat paddles because I'm here in California. Can't let it look like an assault weapon.
I know. It's so sad, dude.
It is sad. It's very sad. Welcome to California. Though, at least I'm not Hawaii. I mean, that's about the only thing I can say. At least I'm not Hawaii.
Yeah. I wouldn't make it there, I don't think.
Dude, Hawaii is jacked up. I mean, jacked up. Can't carry. Basically can't have guns. I'm like, is there even a range in Hawaii? Like, I would never want to move to Hawaii because I don't.
Yeah.
Could I shoot anywhere? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I really want to go to Alaska. I really want to just take my fun guns and go to Alaska. Just probably pay someone to teach me how to hunt and clean just so I can at least know how to do that. Especially if I'm going to be on the carnivore diet, right? You know, hey, go get my own meat.
Good way to live in Alaska, man. Sounds like fun, dude.
I'm with you, man.
Yeah.
Either that or Wyoming or Montana. I'd go to either of those three. Those three are my like dream states.
Dude, I have been watching Longmire on Netflix, and mostly because I like the scenery in Wyoming. And like every now and then they just pan because it's taking place, and I'm like, this place looks awesome. I want to go there. The show is okay, but the scenery in the show is amazing. Yeah.
But you're in Ohio. It can't be that much different, is it?
Oh yeah. So we Oh, it's very different. Like Wyoming is mountains in the background and then beautiful rolling hills. Also, I really like, of course, West Virginia because you have these beautiful rolling hills. In Ohio, it's like flat land and then little bumps, and it's okay. It's pretty here. I do like it here. It's not as good as West Virginia as far as beautiful goes, and I'd sure love to see Wyoming sometime. So, crazy times. Anyway, all that's going on. Everybody needs to stay safe, stay strapped to get clapped. It's crazy times out there. Yeah, that is the motto. Yeah, that is the motto. Well, hey, and if I can give another plug for those of you guys in Northeast Ohio, Lake Erie Arms has classes available. Of course, with all the COVID restrictions, we're only allowed to do 10 people in our concealed carry classes, but we are offering 50-minute individual personal trainings where you can sit down one-on-one with a dude and learn some real stuff. We also have our simulator, which allows for real video scenarios where you know when to pull, you learn to pull fast. It's with essentially imitation Glocks that have air cartridges in them. So you get the full experience, full effect. You get real training. I'm going to highly recommend the CCW class if you have not taken it. Sign up online. You can get in a class. The classes are filling up. We're like booked like into July right now. But get on there. Get on the first class that's available. Probably in the next 3 or 4 weeks, you could get in on one, and then sign up for some of these individual trainings. You will not be able to replicate that anywhere else. And people need to get some of that individual defense training. And it's like $25. I mean, it's cheap for one of those individual defense training classes. I mean, not even class, individual. So think about that. Check out learms.net, and we'll see you out at the shop sometime soon.
Absolutely. All right, guys, thanks for joining us this episode. We'll be back next week with another important episode of the From Concealment podcast. Take care, everybody.
You've been listening to the From Concealment podcast with Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams. Be sure to tune in next week for more gun talk. Also, check out the From Concealment website for more shooting-related goodness at FromConcealment.com.